I have opened that registration for PHP in my PHP store and in the browser as well. Let me collapse the left area, and this is very simple form I have prepared, and the only new thing what I have here is that I am including Bootstrap CSS. So if you have any experience previously working with frontend, probably you know what is Bootstrap. That's just CSS framework, and I'm including one CSS file which gives nice styling to my form. Nice button, nice input fields, nice texts. Nothing special right here. Just there are a couple of classes which are specific to the Bootstrap, and I'm using that classes. Okay, I created a layout, so I have first name, I have username and email next to each other in a single row. I have password and password repeat also in a single row next to each other, and I have that CSV link which just occupies the whole width, and I have that nice button, and that classes are what gives that nice styling. Form control gives nice styling to inputs, btn primary gives nice styling to button, and form group is necessary form for grouping for each individual inputs with a label and input. Okay, so nothing special right here. And I have form around everything which has empty action, and it has method post. That's the important thing, method post. Previously in our search form we had method get, which sends the information in the URL. And here's one important thing to know. The method get is used when you want to send, but generally when you want to get data from the database. Okay, so sending data using get is not really secure way. Okay, and you should only use get method for sending data when the data you actually send is not really secure and important. Okay, so if you're searching something and you are sending search keyword, for this get method is okay, but sending username and password using method get is not okay, because that's really big security problem. So for sending some data like username and password, we need to use method post, and that's exactly what I'm going to use in this section. So we're going to create a registration form validation. Okay, so we're going to submit that form, take that values. If the values is not valid, then we're going to show the errors to the user, and finally we will have all the values what we need, which we can save in the database or do some other things. That's not the part of the section. We will touch about this in the next sections. Okay, so let's start, and first of all let me show you what is the result of the super global $_ in the post. Okay, so when we refresh the page, the post is empty because we haven't sent anything yet to the server. Okay, cool. Now let's fill up the form like we write here. John, email will be john@example.com. john@example.com. Let's give it simple password and some link. Let's write some dumb information there for now. Click the register button. Okay, here's what happens. So here I have all the post information that was sent from the browser. We have username, we have email, password confirm, CV, URL, and that keys again are taken from the names of the input fields. Okay, so the username, all the input fields basically have the name, like username has email, has password, and so on. So that's, I think, really obvious, and I hope it makes sense. Okay, so after this we need to start validation. Okay, so if we don't have username filled up, we need to show a warning to the user or make the username field red that, hey, you need to fill up the username. Okay, if email is not filled up, we need to show that you need to fill up the email. If the email is filled up but it's not proper email format, we need to also show error for this. Okay, and we need to do all these things. First of all, this page is executed even when we are accessing the page very first time. Okay, so we need to write our own validation logic when this page is executed with request method post. Okay, so for this we need to check inside the superglobal server we have request method. Okay, and we need to check if the request method equals to post, then that's the place where we need to handle it. Okay, for example, that's the place where we need to print the whole post data. Okay, let's save this and go to the browser and refresh the page, and I don't see anything printed right here because the request method was get. If I just click the register button, even though the form is empty, it's already post. Okay, it submitted the form with empty values, username empty, email empty, everything is empty. Okay, now we need to start actually validation. First we need to start getting the input from the user. Okay, so like username equals, for example, post / username. So we need to get the username, and we can simply, let's dump this username right here. Okay, let's continue the form submission, and here is my username. Okay, so we need to do a couple of other things when we get the input from the user. Okay, so we need to remove some additional characters from the input to secure our application. For example, we need to call strip slashes, which will remove all unnecessary slashes from our username, and probably we need to also call HTML special characters, which gives us possibility to avoid XSS cross-site request forgery. Okay. Okay, so let's run this HTML special chars, and let's take the username and print it, and the result basically will be the same. We have right now empty username. But the thing is that if we write here some script tag like script and alert, okay, just like this, and we hit the submit. Okay, and it shows that when we submit the form, it throws that alert. That's because we are printing the whole post information. Okay, let's comment the whole post information, and let's resubmit the form, and we don't see that alert anymore. That's because we secured our application with these two functions, HTML special chars and strip slashes. So if I remove that HTML special chars and just resubmit the form just like this, the username will have that script tag inside it, and when we print the username, it will trigger that alert. Okay, we need to avoid this, and we need to basically pass every variable which is received from the post into HTML special chars. Okay, let's create really simple helper function post data. Okay, which post data, which will accept the field post field name, and what we will do right here, first we need to check if that field exists in the post. Okay, let's check it with is set. If the field is not set in the post, let's immediately return false. If it exists in the post, we get that data, that post data. We can actually do this using PHP 7.4 syntax also. Okay, so we can do like this: post at field question mark equals false. Okay, so just like this, just we don't need any space right here. So that means that take the post's value for this field. If it exists, if it doesn't exist, assign false to it. Okay, but we still need to call that HTML special chars and strip slashes methods. Okay, so let's take this code right here, and I'm going to change this into post data and pass here username. Okay, so that will finally return really secure username from that function. Okay, and what we can do right here is that we can actually remove all these things and call HTML special chars and strip slashes, and right here we can pass the post at field. Okay, and we can pass here like empty string to avoid any kind of warnings, because the strip slashes will be applied to the this one, and that if that's false, strip slashes may not be applied to false and it may show warning. Let's return this, and right now our username is like really secure username. Okay, we don't have any issues about this. So if we again remove that function and refresh the browser, we see that alert. Okay, cool. And we need to do the same thing for email, password confirm, and CV link. Okay, let's repeat this a couple of times. We have let's do this using multi-cursor. Okay, so we have here email, we have here password. We need to do the same thing for password repeat. It doesn't really work as I expect. How does the field called? It's called password confirm, and we have CV URL. Okay, password confirm. Let's take that password confirm and put it right here, and we have CV URL. So we get all these values. And let's print that values, username, let's print email, password, first plain password, then password confirm, and then CV URL. Okay, and let's fill up the form, John, or let's fill up with dummy data first. It doesn't really matter for now. Click the register, and we see all these fields which was provided. Okay, that's cool. So we get the data, and the data is like really secure. It doesn't contain any XSS vulnerability code. Okay, let's continue. Now we need to start validation. Okay, what if the username was not submitted? Okay, if the username doesn't exist, then we need to show the error to the user. But we need to show error of email, of password also. So we need to gather that that errors somewhere. Okay, so let's create an errors variable in the global scope. Okay, so errors, that's going to be an associative array. If username doesn't exist, inside errors for field username, we can put there this field is required. Okay, and we can do the same thing if email doesn't exist. If email doesn't exist, we can do the similar. Okay, this field is required, and actually we can take that error message, because we are repeating it twice, and create a constant for this. Okay, so let's define constant, and let's give it a name like required field error. Okay, and it's going to be this field is required, and I'm going to use now this constant for email also, and let's use let's check if the password is provided. We do something similar. Right here we have password, and let's repeat this 2 more times. One will be for password confirm. If password confirm is not provided, we just need not right here. Okay, if password confirm is not provided, we show the error. If CV URL is not provided, we show an error for CV URL. Okay, and we need to show that error somewhere, right? So of course we can print this as a var dump, but that's not really like nice way to show the errors to the user. We need to show it in best case I want to show this under the field, okay, in a red text. Okay, and Bootstrap actually has special classes for this. Okay, so if I want to show an error under the username, I would do something like this. I would create a div, give it a class, and let's call it the class must be invalid feedback. Okay, and whenever the input has class is invalid, that will make the input red, and that will show that error, okay, something. Let's see the result, and here it is. So the input field is actually red, and it shows that something. We need to, this is right now hard-coded, of course, but we need to create the same scenario when there exists error in the username field, okay? So we need to take that class and write PHP tag. So if, let's call is set, if inside errors username exists, if there exists an error for username, we need to output is invalid class to the input, otherwise we just don't output anything, and we need to write here echo. Okay, so if there is any error on the username, we add is invalid class to the input. Okay, and we also print right here errors username. Okay. Okay, cool. So let's reload the page, and that doesn't do anything. It doesn't show the error. And let's move up and let's see what happens. So the reason is that the username is actually provided. Okay, so let's hit the enter and submit the empty form. And in this case, username became red. Okay, because it was empty. In the errors for username key, the error was set, and here we output the error, and we see here this field is required. Okay, so here we also need to check if the error exists in the username. Otherwise, if there is no error for the username, if we inspect that code right here in the invalid feedback, we see notice undefined index username inside errors. Errors doesn't have username there. That's why it just this invalid feedback div is not visible in the browser, but this PHP notice warning error is there. Okay, so we need to do like this, probably question mark, and empty string. Okay, if errors exist, output that error. If it doesn't exist, output an empty string. And we need to do the same thing right here. Okay, instead of that long is set. If username, no, that's not the case. I'm sorry, that's not the case. So if error exists in the username, we need to output is invalid class, not whatever is written inside the error's username. Okay, right now if we inspect that section, is invalid feedback div is empty, and that's what we want. Okay, however, if I open the form and submit an empty form, I see that this field is required error, and I need to do the same thing for every other field. Okay, so I'm going to quickly copy this is set code, go to every form control field and add there. Okay, so we're done, and I'm also going to copy that invalid feedback div and copy and paste for every field also. Just I need to update few things right here. So this one has name CVURL, so I need to use that CVURL right here and right here. This one has password confirm, so I need to use password confirm. This one has password. This one has email. Okay, so let's close the developer tools and let's submit empty form. And we see errors on every field, which is the first step and which works fine. Okay, now what happens if the email is provided, right? This one, but it's not valid email. Okay, so we need to show an error for this also. Okay, we need to write if the email is not provided, we have that error, but if the email is provided, else if email is provided, then we need to check if the email is valid email address. Okay, and for this I'm going to use filter underscore var PHP's function, which accepts first argument the email itself, the input which I want to check or filter, And the next argument is basically PHP's constant. Okay, so PHP has several types of constants for filter var function. One is for validation, second var is for filtering the input, which means removing some like unnecessary characters and things like that. Okay, so for filter var, I'm going to right now use filter validate email constant. Okay, and I'm going to put here not sign. Okay, so if this will basically check the email field's value against whether it's valid email or not. And if it's not valid email address, we put right here an error. Email must, or this field must be a valid email address. Okay, so let's refresh the page and we see an error. This field must be valid email address. Okay, let's take care of the username also. It has some restriction. It should be minimum 6 and maximum 16 characters, and we need to take care of this. So if username exists, then we need to check if the str length, the length of the username, is less than 6, or if its length is greater than 16, str length, excuse me, of username is greater than 16, then we need to show also error for username. Username must be in between 6 and 16 characters. Okay, cool. Now let's submit the form. We have actually errors for everyone, but for email we have different error. Let's fill up something in the username, 2 letters, and we see different error. Username must be in between 6 and 16 characters. So if I put there 6 characters at least, okay, that's already valid username, and I don't see any red on the username. If I put some valid email address, that's also valid email address, and I don't see anything on the email. Okay, so let's do all of them together. Okay, username and email and register, and I don't see username and email errors anymore. Okay, that's pretty cool. Let's continue about password and password confirm. Okay, so password and password confirm must match each other when they are provided. Okay, so if I fill something right there, they must be like the same. Also one good thing which we need to do. So when I fill the form and hit the register button, I lose the information when there's validation error. Okay, so if I fill up the username, if I fill up the email and hit the submit button, I see validation errors, but I lost that information. Okay, I want to save this information and pre-fill the form. Okay, so let me do like this. I'm going to describe right here in the global scope username as an empty string, email as an empty string. We have password as an empty string, password confirm, and CV URL. Okay, so I have defined these values initially, and if it's not post, I defined that if it's not post. Okay, so I'm going to take now these values and assign it back to the input field right here. Okay, so we need to write here value equals to username. Okay, and do the same thing for other fields, like here value equals to email, here value equals to password, and here value equals to password confirm, and here the value, let's paste, the value equals for CV URL. Okay, so that's really good. Now if I fill up the form and type some information there, even password and password confirm, but they don't match each other, and I click the register button, I have them pre-filled. That's good improvement. Okay, so I have username, email, and I just need to fix my password and password confirm right now. Okay, so let's move up in the validation area, go inside the post, not here but here, and I need to check right now if password exists and password confirm both exists, and we need to compare now these two passwords. Okay, and for this I'm going to use strcmp function, okay, which is for comparison, okay, of two strings. Okay, if password and password confirm, and that function returns -1, 1, or 0. To be more precise, negative number or positive number or 0. So this will return negative number if the password is like alphabetically less than the password confirm, which we actually don't care. We just need to check if the password and password confirm is not each other, so is not the same. So we need to check if the strcmp returns other value than 0. Then we need to write inside errors for the, let's make it for the password field. Okay, under the password we need to show or we need to show, let's better to show under the confirm password. Okay, this must match the password field. Okay, so let's repeat the form submission, and I see now this error. This must match the password field. Okay, so if I fill up now 1 2 3 4 right here, 1 2 3 4 also right here, hit the register, the error disappears. However, if I change the repeat password, now I see that this must match the password field, which is cool. Now the last thing what we need to do is CV link. Okay, we need to check if it's a valid URL, and for this we also need to use filter var. Okay, so if the CV URL exists, then we need to check. Okay, we can make also like the CV URL optional. That's also an interesting scenario. Okay, so let's don't make this required, but let's make it optional. But as soon as this is provided, we need to make sure that it's valid URL. Okay, so let's comment this code for now and refresh the page, and we shouldn't see any validation on the CV link, which is okay. But as soon as if it's provided, then it must be valid URL, and that's what we need to check. Okay, so let's modify our if statement slightly. So if CV URL exists, and in this case it must be valid URL. So, and if it's not a valid URL, let's do like this. If it's not a valid URL, and for this we need to use filter validate URL constant. Okay, so if CV URL exists and it's not a valid URL, then we need to write here, please provide a valid link. Okay, and let's reload this form submission, and here it is. We see please provide a valid link. However, if we type here http:/example.com myCV, let's hit the register, that's valid URL, and it doesn't show any validation error. Okay, so we can remove that var_dom statement completely, and I think that's enough for this video form submission using post and validation. Okay, so now we have all 5 variables: username, email, password, password repeat, and CSV, and we can do whatever we want. We are sure that the validation works, and here we need to write an if statement if the errors array is empty. Okay, if nothing was written inside errors, this is the place where we need to like save the post data somewhere. Okay, if the errors information is empty, then like we can print everything is good. Cool. Okay, submit it, and we see everything is good. Okay, if we change a different URL, like delete that one, hit the register, well, we shouldn't see everything is good. Okay, so we don't see everything is good when the link is not valid. Okay, so that's it for registration form and for post data. Let's move on and talk about sessions and cookies.